Hello, everybody. We should be live, hopefully, if I've remembered even half of the things I need to do to get this rolling. Appreciate you all. Appreciate you watching after the fact. It was very heartwarming to see all of the replay people come in on the last live stream, even after so long. I appreciate you all very, very much. I don't have one set topic for today. I want to talk about quite a few different things, give you all an update on the fish room and how things are progressing. I do want to apologize that I did not stream or upload last week like I had intended to, but the family had kind of been passing around the crud. It wasn't Corona, wasn't COVID, but just something. So um, nobody wants to watch a video where somebody's got a stuffy nose and coughing and all that good stuff. So we skipped that. I've still got a little bit of stuff going on, so forgive me if I have to clear my throat from time to time. But I'm here and I wanted to hang out with you all and talk about aquariums and some of the things that I've been thinking about, things I've been working on. Um, Also, I wanted to test out kind of the streaming. I need to relearn some things because it's been a while. But also, I wanted to see how the internet was going to hold up out here in the fish room on the Wi-Fi. I've checked it various times throughout the day on different days, and it's always been minimum 100 megabit speed. So we should be good there. Eventually, I will hardwire out here and actually set up a studio area with a desk and all of that. Right now, though, I did bring out the laptop instead of the cell phone, so at least we got the orientation correct this week. The mic and the camera things are a little bit off, but we'll continue to work on that, make it better, make it more enjoyable for you all. Going to pause myself down here now that I know that it's going out. There's nothing like watching yourself talk on a delay out of the corner of your eye. That's definitely not distracting at all, and that's going to make for just wonderful quality for you lovely folks. All right, I've got my chat, and it is on live chat. I remember to do that. But yeah, please let me know if you do have any issues with quality, either audio, video, or connection. I'm always open to hear that feedback so we can make this as enjoyable as possible. We are just running on 720 this week. Eventually, we'll get it back on the 1080, but right now we're just using the basic StreamYard package until I get things set up a little bit better. Appreciate that, Silver Creek. Thank you all for being here. So, in terms of what's been going on in the fish room, I may have jumped the gun a little bit, but we'll get to that and I'll explain why. I did set up a couple of 10 gallons after I took down a set of 4 that was on end. I set up 2 not on end, and then we've got 2 more that are going to go up top. The basic plan right now is to just get enough tanks up and enough space to get the plants that I still have propagating out well and growing, because the 20 long that you can see up there was so packed full of moss that about half of it had died out. So I'm trying to make enough room that I can get all of that spread out to where it's all getting light, because that was the issue that we had there was the top of it, the top layer of moss all the way across was doing fantastic. It's pearling and everything, no CO2. But the bottom layer had just died out because it was just not getting light down there. So cleared that out, cleaned that tank up, reset it, and then divided out some moss. You can kind of see right there, one of the 10 gallons. So that one there has got a bunch of the moss in it. And then I did pick up some shrimp from a local club member. We ended up getting 10 yellow neos, 20 blue neos, and then 10 red realies. So the red realies are in that tank there. And then the blues are next to me and the yellows are down on the end. But I wanted to get a start on that because they're going to take a while to really, to grow out, because they're all, half-inch size. But B, also, it's going to take a while for them to start making babies. And I'd like when the time comes and I'm actually setting up tanks to have a decent amount of shrimp. So they're kind of a set it and forget it, so to speak. Not in the sense of we're not going to do anything with them, but it's not something that requires a lot of maintenance or care. A tank full of moss and some shrimp. It's not a huge ordeal. It's not a lot of maintenance added on. It's not a lot of energy and money that's refocused away from the actual build itself. But by the time I need those shrimp, um, sorry, I saw something. I'll grab it here in a second. But by the time that I need those shrimp and I've got tanks actually going up in place for what we'll call the final build, because we're fish keepers and we all know eventually we're going to get the bug, and I'm going to get the bug, and I'm going to go, well, maybe we'll change that around, down the road a year or two from now. But the final first build, I guess we'll say, once I start doing that, I'd like to have a decent amount of shrimp that I can spread around to tanks, because again, we're starting from scratch. So just kind of letting time be my friend there. Leslie, I'm sorry to hear that. Leslie said my blood parrot, James, which she had named for me, died Friday. I'm so sad. I don't know what happened. He was fine. I went to work, came home and found him, but I don't know how old he was when I acquired him. Rest in peace. I am really sorry to hear that, Leslie. I definitely know how that feels to lose one, especially when it's kind of a wet pet or a water puppy, something that you've named and is not just random guppy 37 in a tank. And of course, it makes me sad too, because you would been sweet enough to name it for me. So I'm really sorry for your loss on that. But just know that we love you and we're here for you. And you'll find another wet pet to embrace on that level sooner or later. But thank you for being here as well, Leslie. So we've got shrimp, we've got moss. I've got this tank behind me, and this is one of the things that I kind of want to touch on. And I almost went, and I may still do it. I was tempted to do. I don't even know what technically the genre is. Well, I know it, but I can't think of the word off the top of my mind. It's not a review, but basically a commentary. I saw a video of Aquarium Co-op that kind of popped up on the auto loop as I was working on things and just listening. And it was in regard to, are small tanks better? And I want to talk a little bit about my thoughts on that. And who knows, I may still do that video and kind of break it down play by play and give my thoughts to what I think in a separate video aside from here. We're going to talk about that some. The other thing that I've got is in the 20 long here. I moved I broke it down, cleaned it out, restarted it, let it get algae and things growing in it, some signs of life, planted for the first time all of the plants that I had ordered from the Co-op mystery package. Plus I had added on 2 plants when I ordered that. So that actually completely filled that 20 long up, which is what made that video come to mind in terms of big tanks versus small tanks and kind of some of the struggles that you have to overcome with dealing with bigger tanks versus little ones. But we've got that planted out and plenty of room for that stuff to start growing out. So we'll have some plants to shift over once we do actually get tanks in place. And then I bought some fish. And I didn't intend to, and I had been doing really well. The missus and I had gone out for something, and I was like, well, let's swing by the fish store. I didn't stop by Aquatic Marine as much as I really wanted to, but I knew if I got in there, I haven't talked to Kenny in quite some time. I think since I bought those tanks, as a matter of fact, that are outside. And I didn't have time for the conversation that I knew Kitty and I would get into if we stopped. So I hit like the Pet Supplies Plus and not PetSmart. What's PetSmart? Just kind of look at things. I wanted to get a feel for what was in the local market, what the prices were now, because I know I don't get out much. As someone that doesn't do a lot of the shopping, when I do go to even like the grocery store, the increase in cost to the things kind of blows me away. Um, so I wanted to kind of see where the market was on just fish stuff in general, and just see what was in the local area and things like that. And did really good not buying anything until I came across the cutest little blue egg platies. And so they had 12. No, they had 11. They had 11 or 12. I bought what they had. Um, so I put them. They're in that 20 there, and they're doing well. You can kind of see them there, and I'd move the camera around for you, but I'm actually going to do a video, probably film it tomorrow. By the time this live stream is said and done, maybe may do it tonight, but and actually go through and show you all of the tanks up close and what's going on with them, and kind of more in depth with the plans on everything. But part of that was, as much as I'm enjoying starting over, one, they're beautiful little fish, and I haven't really done much with platies. I've kept a couple, but it's always mostly been like guppies and then endlers. But they're almost a motivation for me. Yeah, I've got the other tank set up, and I've got a bunch of plants everywhere. And even with the shrimp, it's still kind of not quite the same for me personally. I know there are people out there that can enjoy, like an aquascape tank with no livestock, or just a shrimp tank with plants. But for myself, it doesn't have that same satisfaction as actually having some fish along with the plants and shrimp and snails and things. So I did get some fish. That way I can come out here and I can work on things. And then, like the other day, I just sat here for, I don't know, maybe 2 hours and just watched that one tank, and really got a lot of enjoyment out of having those fish again, and kind of learning their little peculiarities and how they interacted with each other. And then we did get a couple of bettas, because the missus was there, and we had our youngest boy with us as well. That's what it was. That was the day that I actually picked up the shrimp, because we had taken my youngest to a doctor's appointment. And so they looked at the bettas and they were like, "Can we?" And I'm like, "Well, I've got some tanks, and the tanks are well enough along that the bettas can go in them." So we do have a couple of bettas. There's actually one in there with the platies, and then there's one in that moss tank, and then there's one in that tank right there, which that tank is where I'd had a bunch of hornwort that had just been in one of the 40 breeders I needed to drain and break down. So I actually took it after I planted these plants from the co-op order, and I took all of the rock wool and those pots. Well, not all, most of. Some of the root systems were so well developed on the co-op plants that I didn't really get good sized chunks back out when I took the plants out. But I used a lot of those pots and rock wool, and actually took that hornwort and put it in there just to kind of spread it out a little bit, and also give this a little bit more of a planted look versus just a whole pile of stuff all floating on the surface. So, and we've got a betta in there. So it's a lot of fun and enjoyment having the fish back, and being able to just sit here and just watch fish. And I'll get to the chat here in a second and try and get caught up. I hope I haven't missed any questions. I'm not nearly as good at actually keeping track of the chat as I used to be. I'm sure part of that is the time spent not having done it. And part of it's also due to the fact that when I did this before, I had a big 50-inch flat screen behind me that I had things up on. So it was more than just the computer monitor, but we'll get back on it. I've been trying to watch through, but if you have any questions that you directly want me to address, feel free to throw those in. Of course, if you put the @ symbol and then Fisher and Fever, it highlights for me, and then I know you're trying to get my attention. So that's always appreciated on my end, and it makes it a little bit more efficient. Trying to grab questions versus just coming into the middle of conversation with each other that you all have, which I absolutely love, and I try and catch as much of that as I possibly can. But that's part of why we're here, is for you all to talk amongst yourselves while listening to me ramble on. So again, thank you for that. But one of the things that I'm looking at in terms of where I'm planning on going with the build is I have I'm looking off to the camera here. I know this is great viewing for you all. But I've got a stack of 20 longs over in that corner of the fish room. Got 4, 8, 12, 16 there. We're not going to utilize all of those, which is still hard for me to say. It's like I've got about 50 10-gallon tanks, and I'm like, I could do things with those. For right now, we're not. But the plan is on this wall behind me here. And again, this is a 12 by 16 storage building. On this wall behind me, I want to put 9 20 longs. I think that will be plenty of room, definitely to start with. And I also think that will be plenty of room for a lot of the things that I have enjoyed keeping, as well as things that I would like to enjoy in the future and try out. Things like guppies, endlers, platies. Hopefully get back into some things like I had the 4-spot Merry Widows and some other rarer fish, rare live bears that I don't even want to think about having lost. But a lot of those things don't need huge tanks. And so I'm going to try and narrow down and go with there. The back wall here, the plan, the theory is that I can rebuild from / fix those. They're somewhere between 75 and 90 gallons. It's the large fish store tanks that you would see more often, like the mom and pop fish stores that stack 3 tall, and they're usually divided into thirds. But the plan is to do 6 of those along this 16-foot wall over here. This is a 12-foot wall. I guess I should have prefaced with that. That's the 12-foot wall, and then 16-foot wall on that side. And do 3 sets of 2, and that will also give me room to keep them a good height off of the floor. So that's what I have planned for tanks. That's what I'm going to try and keep it down to. If I can do that, or if I do that, what that would allow me to do is some quality of life improvements out here. So that would leave me, that whole, well, not whole, because we'll have it's like 20 inches of tank coming off the back wall, but the majority of that 12-foot wall there, and that would give me room to set up my studio area. And then you would have kind of that wall of tanks and this wall of tanks all behind me. So we'd have that for a good background. But it's going to allow me to put in things like not a mop sink. Wow. A utility sink. Yeah, I can plumb in a utility sink, a stand-up large sink. And that would be nice to have in here. So I say so I don't have to go outside and wash things. I actually kind of enjoy outside. I've got one of those 6-foot just plastic fold in half tables for like tailgating or whatever, or for fish events and things. And I kind of enjoy working on stuff out there. That's where I'm like taking the tanks out to, scrubbing them, scraping them, and getting them cleaned up. And I say I enjoy that because I'm on 26 acres in the middle of the nowhere, so it's just kind of like standing out in nature, enjoying the wind and the woods, and it's under a large tree, so it's not in the direct sunlight, and it's just kind of nice to just be outside and enjoy that while I'm doing some things. But it definitely would be quality of life improvement if I had an actual sink in here where, okay, I just needed to rinse out a brine shrimp hatchery or do these little things, versus just having water running in on a hose and taking tanks and things, actually having water disposal inside. So I think that's one of those things that if you look at, well, I could put a couple more tanks on that wall, and I personally have to fight that urge, especially because I already have the tanks. So it's really one of the things that I've struggled with some is resisting the urge to do like I initially did when I planned this out. I broke out the grid paper and I looked at all, what tanks I had available and how many inches of space I had available, and I just was like, okay, I can cram this in there, and I can turn these this way, and I can build this up high, and I can put this rack here, and then in the middle I can build this thing. Um, and that's not to say that maybe one day that doesn't happen again. But right now, I really am just trying to. GRB said raw concrete fish room floors priceless. Yeah, absolutely. That would be one of those things. That's a long term dream. We're not even put it on goals. We put it on dreams. I do have 1,000 square foot um, workshop garage thing um, with a concrete floor, but that would be a bit of a financial investment, partially because there's a massive tree that was allowed to grow right alongside of it, which is great, except for the roots have destroyed that concrete floor. But then also it would need to be rewired, and it's a whole other fight with the electric company because of the way that the property lines went. That it doesn't exist in their system, even though it's got power lines run to it and their power box on it. It doesn't exist. So that would be a whole nother thing. But one day I'd love to have that as a fish room. But who knows? We'll see. Maybe we hit the lottery and make that a thing. But for now, I'm going to be happy with this. And I'm really enjoying just what I've got going and kind of taking my time and doing small things. So I've got a crick in my neck, so it may look weird when I turn, but um, yeah, just having some easy to maintain, enjoyable stuff. I'm finding a beauty to it, if you will, and who knows? Maybe we'll get into other stuff down the road, but I think we're gonna enjoy how this works out and having to do less work and having more enjoyment. Yinzers Aquatic says, I lost 7 out of 8 of my angels and my 55 from disease from rummy nose from Petco. General cure didn't work. How long would you wait to introduce new fish? I usually run a UV bulb, but was bad. So if you just lost those fish, I'm going to give it several weeks before I put anything else in there. Just me personally, this is just what I would do. I'm going to give it a couple weeks just to make sure that everything is completely gone and settled and dealt with. B, to try and get that remaining fish, and I guess whatever other fish may still be in there. I know you lost 7 of the 8 angels. I don't know if you still had any rummy nose left or any other fish that may be in there, if you have plecos or whatnot. But aside from making sure that everything is healed up and no longer sick, also to give those fish that were sick time to kind of not really heal back up, but get to feeling better. Get them fed back up, get them kind of past that. Oh, I just escaped death. I made it, but I'm not feeling great. Give them time to kind of get back to a baseline, back to that normal level of, okay, they're eating normally and they're swimming normally and they're not showing any problems and they're healed up. That's personally what I would do. And then I would, and there's Audra. Hello, Audra. Said I QT any fish for at least 8 weeks before I'll introduce them to my established tanks. That was going to be what I would say is I would 100% recommend setting up some form of quarantine. And that doesn't have to be anything ridiculous. That could be as simple as a cheap plastic tote and a sponge filter. And if you need another air pump, an air pump, or maybe you're set up to where you can run it off of the pump that you have. You can tee it off, or but that is what I would do going forward. That doesn't help you now, of course, but I would definitely give it some time. Make sure all the fish are beyond sickness, and then make sure that they're actually healthy and have had some time to kind of bounce back from that sickness. And then just go get myself a little tote if you don't have a 10-gallon aquarium or don't want to buy a 10-gallon, because I know that sometimes there's an urge, if, well, I have that 10-gallon for quarantine, but I could just set it up as another tank. It's also nice that if you just got like even like a 5-gallon tote. I like doing 10 gallons mainly off of the premise that a majority of medications, or at least used to be, could have changed. I've been out of the game for a little bit, but the majority of medications are often based off of dosing per 10 gallons. So it just makes it that much easier not to screw stuff up. I'm a mathy guy. I enjoy math. That's probably my best subject, but I know a lot of people are not math people. The missus, she's my grammar and English person, and I'm her math person. So if you're like, oh, I need X amount of mLs per 10, and then I divide that, so that's like what, 2.5 mLs. Well, I don't have that. I'm using something that's teaspoon, so I need to convert over. And there's how many mLs in a teaspoon, so I need half. That can get confusing and frustrating, or just easy to make a mistake and go, wait, did I read that wrong? Yeah, so I like to base my QTs off of 10 gallons just for the fact that when I'm going to dose the medications while they're in quarantine, or even if you're not treating ahead of time, if you have them in quarantine and they come up with something, when you need to dose the medications, it's real simple to look at the bottle and go, oh, yeah, I need 5 mLs per 10 gallons. There we go. 10-gallon tank, 5 mLs, easy peasy. So basically, don't need substrate, just a container that can hold enough water to quarantine the fish, and a sponge filter. I love and recommend the Aquarium Co-op sponge filters, especially now that they have the uplift tubes. That excuse me, there's the throat clearing I talked about earlier. Grab a sip of water real quick. But that has saved me a lot of work now that they have the uplift tubes, because some of y'all probably saw in the past where I had kind of finagled and rigged stuff together and tried to use, PVC elbows, and you could take some of the other tubes and kind of heat them up and bend tubing and stuff, but it's a lot easier when somebody else has already done the work and figured out even the best angle for it to go at. So I'm absolutely loving those. And I guess transparency purposes, I forgot the legal grammar here I'm supposed to use. I had mentioned needing to buy a bunch of those, and Aquarium Co-op did send me a bunch of those for free. So take that as you will. But I was going to buy them anyways. But I do appreciate them sending, because that's another couple rolls of insulation, or another roll of insulation, depending upon which insulation you're looking at, that I can now afford, because I didn't have to pull that out of the budget. But yeah, I do love those, and they're making, I don't know if they made it easier because I don't have to try and do it myself, but they're making it, how do I want to phrase this? More enjoyable in the sense that I'm getting really good flow. So like in this tank, if you look, you can see it pushing across the top, and you can't see it from here. I'll show you when I actually film the video and show what's going on, but you can actually see, looking in the tank, the movement through some of the plants and grass and stuff. Yeah, so it's nice to have that added, I guess nature effect would be a good way to put it, because when you're looking in a river, a stream, a creek, body of water, you see that the plants are moving around in the current. So it's not just great for the cleaning purposes of, oh, we're getting all of this detritus and debris pushed back over towards the sponge filter so we can get picked up. But it's also nice for the viewing effect, which is part of why I've tried to do that in the past. But man, I'd really like to get more flow, like say on Val and things. I always loved when I had a big tank, and really tall jungle valve, get a power head in there so you could watch that valve flow in the current. So that's fun too. There's so many little enjoyable aspects that all just add up to a good quality time. And I've really missed it. I've missed you all as well. I've missed doing this. I'm not really to the level I was of doing this, I guess you could say, but I'm working on getting back at it. Try not to skip too many beats. And where was it? I just saw it somewhere. Oh, Yinzers, you're more than welcome. Yeah, it's the learning the lesson with quarantine is one of those that I won't say all of us make, but a vast majority of people make that mistake. I've done it myself. It's so oh no, they'll be fine. They look good. They look healthy. You stick them in there, and the next thing you know, you're losing some fish that you've had for a while, or some things that you didn't have to lose if you had quarantined. So that's also one of the benefits of the smaller tanks is that as I'm going through and setting them up, because I'm not, at least at this point, and at least at the beginning when I get the wall started, it's not going to be a whole mix of things. So it's kind of like this tank. I bought 11 or a dozen, we'll just call it a dozen, of those, I keep wanting to say mollies, of those platies. And because it's going into a new tank, I don't have to necessarily worry about quarantine. I worry about it in the sense that I'm monitoring the fish and I'm making sure that they're healthy and that they haven't brought anything with them and they're not, showing symptoms of anything. But I don't have to worry about them passing anything along because every tank is its own little environment and ecosystem. And then if I do have to treat, I only have to treat 20 gallons, which I need to order some more meds. I went through and kind of took stock of what I had left after the freeze and whatnot. I need to order some more medications, and I think test strips. That's one thing I've do as I say, not as I do, as I tell the kids sometimes. Um, I need to order more test strips because I'm guessing, I don't remember, but I think that's one of the things that the big dog chewed up when we had him in here. He ate so much stuff that it was about ridiculous. But I think that he chewed those up too. Because I've not found them. I looked through all my stuff. So I have been running without testing as much. I had some strips, but I didn't have the whole thing of my co-op strips. And I've got like my master test kit, which is probably technically expired, but I'm gonna pull that fallacy that a lot of us do of I've been doing this long enough. I know, which we do, but also there are things that you can't really tell without actually testing. But you can look for the signs. Like I didn't put so the 10-gallon tanks, and I think you can kind of maybe possibly see it. That's plants up there. That's more in the top. There is actually algae all over that, and I've scraped it down once. And then I've scraped it down once on the front glass, but it's still coming right back. But I did that intentionally. When I first set those up, I hadn't gotten any of the plants moved over to them. So I actually just took and dosed some Easy Green into the tank with the lights on the setting I knew they were going to be on, and no plants in there. Why would you do that? Well, I knew that if I put all those nutrients in there, I would get algae, and I would get algae pretty quick. And that's what we got. So I looked and I said, oh, hey, this entire tank is coated in algae on all four sides. We'll throw some moss in there. And there's definitely enough biodiversity going on that sorry, stupid crick in my neck. Enough biodiversity going on that those shrimp have plenty of stuff to graze on and grow out. Oddball, good to see you. It's good to see all of you all. I appreciate you being here. Whips World said, I missed the first few minutes. What's the plan for species? I've heard platies and shrimp so far, but what's the current plan? There isn't one. but there kind of is. Now I'll clarify that here in a second. Do this so I don't cough at you all. Good old H2O. So I want to. So we're going to have the 6 bigger tanks, which are again between 75 and 90 gallons. I think they're probably more towards 75, even though they're built bigger than a 75 because of the way the glass comes down on the front, because they have the sliding pet store doors. I think they're closer to 75, but I know one of the things the missus has asked for is somewhere in there, can we work in a cichlid tank? She really misses her African cichlids. So definitely we're going to have a tank for her to do that in. It's going to be a lot of, well, it's going to be basically all planted tanks except maybe her cichlid tank. But even then, we can work around that when the time comes. But I know I want to get some different live bearers in. I'd really like to find the 4-spot Mary Widows again, which I'm sure I will. I'm not actually looking for fish at the moment. This is all going to be, we get sections built, we get the plants, we get sections built, we get the tank set up, we get the plants in, we let them do their thing. And then as the time comes and I find something that I want to go, oh, I've got 7 empty 20 longs that are all fully planted with maybe shrimp in them, hopefully shrimp in them, depending upon how quick I can get them to populate. So I'll already have well-established aquariums. Then I can kind of look and go, oh, there's some 4-spot Mary Widows. Let me go ahead and order those. Or, hey, Mike, fish tank barn. Let me talk to you about some fish, Let me buy some of those fish from you there, buddy. I know he's got some really good stuff. I know he's one of those people that when I can't find something, he has it. Now, whether it's available to get from him, it's a different story. But a lot of times I'm like, I can't find this thing. And then I'll watch one of Fish Tank Barn's videos and he's got it. I'm like, how are those things breeding out for you, Mike? And sometimes it's, yeah, they're doing good. And sometimes it's, no, I'm still working on it, we'll talk down the road. But I definitely want to do in one of the bigger tanks. We'll just go with bigger tanks and skip the whole volume gallons conundrum there. One of the bigger tanks, I definitely would like to do some plecos. And I definitely want to have bristlenose again. Maybe not a whole bunch of them breeding, but I would like to have maybe one breeding pair and then be able to, here, we'll put a bristlenose in here. We'll put a bristlenose in there. There are, I can't think of what they're called. There are a couple of smaller bristlenose that are not cheap. They're a little bit more expensive, but well worth it. I can't think of what they're called. I've got kind of not really a list, but I've got like some different screenshots of fish that I've seen. And I'm like, oh, let me just take a screenshot of what that is, and then I can go back through all these images and find it again. Other than that, it's going to be a lot of setup tank, plant tank, let tank get extremely well established, seasoned, if you will. And then as I find a fish, go, oh, I'd really like that fish. What do I have? Okay, yeah, I've got, I can go in a 20 long, or those can go in this tank. But it's going to be lots of planted, maybe not community tank, planted nano fish tanks. Probably do one nice community tank. So if I'm looking at 6, let's say we do one for cichlids, and then we do one that is a pleco breeding project. And somebody had just asked, JRB, good to see you. G'day. If I still have the snowballs. No, we lost everything. I talked about that in the stream I did, I guess 2 weeks ago now, because I was sick. But we lost everything. So we started over with plants. and I think 5 cherry shrimp, and that was it. No livestock, no fish. But I would like to do one of those tanks for a pleco breeding project that's not just bristlenose. Um, I've not decided what yet. Well, again, we'll figure that out when the time comes and which one really hits me and what fits into the budget. But so we do one for the African cichlids for the misses, because it's always nice when you can get the significant other a little bit more into it, and then they're a little bit more. Hey, you want to help me pick out some plants? You want to go to the pet store? Oh, I'm doing water changes. Oh, you want to help? Oh, you want to come hang out in the fish room and we could just sit and look at fish for a couple hours? So do one for that. Do one for a pleco breeding project. I do want to do one legitimate or true planted community tank. Get some angelfish in there, because anybody that's been around for a while, which is all of you wonderful people, pretty much, I appreciate you. Those of you that have been around knows that the missus loves angelfish, as do I. But I know that's one of those things that we can kind of pick out which ones we want together. So get some angelfish is kind of the centerpiece fish for that. I have a nice little community tank. And that still leaves 3 of the 6. One of them I would like to do for a piranha tank, not necessarily a school of red bellies, because you really don't want to do that many in there. But I may do one for a something from the Cerasalamus family, which are the ones that have to be kept independently or by themselves generally, because they just will not tolerate being in with other fish, even of their own kind. And that still leaves me a couple of, I don't know. Another thing that I may do, that I'll probably do, which I've thought about it before and I kind of forgot while I was going over plans. I'll probably find room to fit in one more of those tanks. I know you're going, just one more tank, which I'm not, though. But not, it doesn't have to be repaired. It can come in with the cracked bottom, and I can just seal it for safety issues. To bring the tortoise back in. We do still have the tortoise. Jellybean is okay. Our little sulcata tortoise. He is fine. So, but he's still growing. So I may bring one of those back in here for him, just so I can have him in here as well, so that he's kind of, while I'm out here doing all the fish things, I got my little buddy Jellybean hanging out. So that may be a thing. So we work him into here as well. But that would still leave me a couple of wet aquariums of a good size to plan out, and then go, oh, I went to the club swap, and they have these really cool fish that I didn't know I wanted until I saw them, because that's kind of, I don't want to say what I'm getting into, because that's always been a thing for me. But it's one of those stink bugs. That'll be another nice thing about getting this actually sealed up, is keeping a little bit of the nature out. I love nature, and I love it when it's outside the doors. But so one of the things you'll see when I do the update video and get the close-up shots is there's mosquito larvae pretty much in every tank, minus where, like, I put the betta up top in this moss tank, so it's working on the mosquito larvae in there. Well, no, that one I reset, so that one we didn't have to worry about it. But this one, I guess I reset all of them, and the mosquitoes have even come back, because everything had a lot of mosquito larvae. But yeah, I completely scrubbed those tanks down empty and set them up from scratch. But I was looking before the stream, and I'm looking right now, and I can see mosquito larvae in there. But that'll be one of the nice things about getting it sealed off, is keeping some of the nature out, like the mosquitoes and the stink bug that I'm watching crawling along over there on the rafters. Excuse me. Yeah, this is my first time trying it out, and I guarantee it's going to be, you get what you pay for. This is my my China Direct, as I like to call it, mug. Seems to be insulated well enough, but the missus and I went to the flea market Sunday. She took her first special day off. She requested a day off. And we went to the flea market because she really wanted to do that. I was like, oh, $10 for a really big cup. I'm sure it'll give me $10 worth of value. If I'm lucky, maybe 20, but it's working out well so far. Whips World said Jelly Bean has 26 acres to roam around on here. She doesn't want to be stuck in a fish room. Yes, he will, or she will. But right now he's not big enough. He's just a little tortoise. But that was one of the things that we've wanted a tortoise for years, but we didn't ever have a viable home for it. But now that it's like we've got 26 acres paid off, we're not going anywhere. I'm gonna die out here, and then the kids will own the property and they won't have to worry about it. We knew that we could properly take care of one, so we did buy that sulcata. It's 2 years ago at an aquashella. But yeah, he's definitely, once he gets bigger and it's safe for him to be out, we'll be out and we'll build him his own pen. And we've already put a lot of the thought into that for down the road. Whips World said, so what are the odds of bringing piranha back into the fish room eventually? I know they require a bigger tank, which isn't the current plan, but plans sometimes change. So part of the plan, and I think I'm going to start shifting over to calling it the dream versus the plan. And the only reason being for financial reasons. Because again, the missus decided, she'd spent the past decades staying at home with the kids. She wanted to be the one to go to work, and me stay home with the kids, which are hopefully not setting the house on fire right now. But so there's the financial part of, it may just be me, but I don't like the whole, hey, can we fund this project out of your paycheck type thing. So if I can get things lined up, I still have, and for anybody that missed the other one, not only did all the fish are gone, or were gone, we've got new fish, a couple new fish. Majority of the tanks shattered when we had the -10, -12 temperatures for that 1 week. But a lot of them, all sides didn't break, so there's still good glass on them. So like the 220 gallon, the bottom blew out of it, but I still have the 4 side panels. Those 6-foot sheets of glass, 6 foot, I think they're 30 inches tall. Those would work out nicely for viewing panels on an outdoor plywood pond build, which is something that I've always wanted to do, but never really had a place to do it on previous properties and at old houses. So that's definitely something that it's a plan in the sense of, if I can make it happen. That's some weird like wasp thing in here. So I'm enjoying nature cautiously at the moment, because I don't know exactly what it was. There is, but that's what's got my attention, is it's wandering around on the wall. But that's, yeah, Jeremy said that's insane temps, and that's Fahrenheit. That's not Celsius. Because I've got a friend in Canada that I talk to all the time, and he's like, oh, I forget what it was. I think it was like -18 the other day or something. Or no, it wasn't. It's been down that low, of course, but it's not that cold there yet. I think you just said it was 18. But yeah, -12 Fahrenheit. For you, all my wonderful worldwide people that are dealing in Celsius. So it's really cold, but especially for here, it never gets that cold here. That was actually record temperatures. They issued a state of emergency. People unfortunately lost their lives due to the power outages and the extreme cold. So that was not something that I've ever had to deal with before, and hopefully we'll ever have to deal with again. I know there are people that live up north that are accustomed to that, but for Tennessee, that's not typical weather. Sometimes we've had years where it's 75 on Christmas, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So that was crazy, and it was rough. But I digress. I guess just to give those of you all that weren't in the previous stream or didn't see it, kind of a more in-depth update without going too far into it. But that's where we're at. I've got a lot of tanks that still have viable glass on them. So I do have plans to build a rack to store that glass, because as long as it stays safe, that glass will last pretty much indefinitely. So I'm going to build like a glass storage rack, kind of like what you see on the like glass repair vans and things like that, or glass delivery vans. And then we're going to store that stuff until I can build some ponds, because I would like to. That was always the plan when we looked at the property. Like there's a lot of room for ponds and water features and things. And that'll be a whole nother aspect of the hobby when we get there. But that's a hopes and dreams thing that I just happen to have a lot of the supplies for already. The focus right now is to work on the fish room a little bit at a time. Like buy a roll of insulation here, buy a couple sheets of plywood there, and as I can manage to make it happen, get all this sealed up and insulated. I think I've got enough wiring to do it. If not, we'll figure that into the budget somewhere to get enough wiring to do it. And then I'm hopeful. I just got my mineral oil in the mail yesterday, because Walmart's been out of it for a while. But I'm hoping that I can get the linear air pump running again. I thought I had it running again, and then I came in 2 days ago, and of course immediately noticed nothing was bubbling, and it was just shut down and really, really, really hot. So we'll take it apart, clean it up even better, get some mineral oil in there to kind of get everything greased and lubricated up, see if that works, and go from there. The next step, I think, is to try and try to rebuild it by buying a rebuild kit, which I found for like $70, which is still a lot cheaper than a new linear air pump. For right now, I have a backup linear air pump running that I had gotten from a club member that doesn't put out nearly as much as the new one, but it does enough to cover what I'm working with now. But I don't even know with the level of output that it has, if it would even handle the first 9 tanks going up. So we'll see. Whip, I appreciate you, brother. I really do. Just need to start streaming more, get your hours up. We can super chat you, dream. I appreciate that. I'm definitely getting it back to streaming, which is why I felt bad missing last week, but nobody wanted to see me on here all coughing and sore throat and congested and all that stuff. But I actually I'm gonna try. I don't want to put a promise out there, but I'm going to try and do a couple live streams a week at least to get back in the flow of things and kind of get the hang of it again. Which, like, case in point, I'm not looking as directly at the camera as I used to. I used to, like, that was just kind of ingrained in me to look at you all versus kind of look over here, look over there, because I know that makes for great quality entertainment. When I'm just kind of talking and looking around the room. Well, what's James up to? I don't know. I thought he was talking to us. But I need to get back into practice, and I miss talking to you all. And aside from that, you all have great thoughts and great ideas and lots of experience. So it's always fun to kind of throw ideas out there, and then somebody says, well, have you tried that? Or did you think of that? Or, hey, I did something similar and I tried this and it worked well. So the not just interaction with you all and sharing the experience, but also that feedback that I receive from you all, not just on getting back in the swing of things and improving the quality of entertainment, but also you all helping me with my hobby and going, hey, here's a thought. And me going, oh, hey, I don't know why I didn't think of that. I need that aspect of it as well, or at least I enjoy that aspect of it as well. So there's that. But it's going to be fun. And I am going to take you all along for the ride. And we'll kind of do a step by step. And I'll show you all how I build up the fish room. Not necessarily that it's the best way, but it'll definitely be a way. I probably won't show you all certain things like, well, this is how I wired in all the outlets and stuff, just because of the potential legal liabilities of, oh, well, he made an electrical how-to and I did the thing and I burnt my house down and I'm going to sue him. So you'll probably just see that as, oh, hey, look, we got all the wiring done. But aside from that, I think pretty much everything else, like how I set up the linear air pump, how I do the plumbing, how I, go about framing it in, building the stands, all that stuff, take you all through the fun stuff there. Make sure I've not missed anything. I don't see anything highlighted. Papa Shrimp said that looks like a tough shed, 16-inch on center and double top rail. This is, I don't know if it's a tough shed. Actually, hold on a second. I grabbed the paper is still hanging in here from forever ago. It is a, let's see if there's anything on here. Covered. No, there's some ash cover from the fire, some ash covered spider webs. From Shed Max. There's my mom's name on here because she's the one that actually called and did the order for us. But it is, it's going to show. Yeah, it is actually kind of showing. I don't know why I covered her name. Like you all don't know my last name. But that's what it is. The one nice thing was that when the gentleman that delivered it here, because we had it moved from another property, the gentleman that delivered it is a really great guy. I can't remember his name. I wish I could. I give him a shout out because he kind of delivers on the side type thing. Like he moves them on the side. Like he does the deliveries, but then he also has on his off days, he'll pick them up and move them from, we moved properties like we did, move them to the new property. Yeah, I'm sure it's a regional thing, Papa Shrimp, because it's a lot of these, as with most products in life, a lot of these are all built by a company and then like 4 different companies sell them. So that's something that's kind of funny. And like some of them, it's like, well, we all kind of get them from the same place, but we're the ones that put the coat of paint on them for you. So we make our own. J Rock says, James wipes eyes and blinks. Yep, it's me. Good to see you. J Rock, appreciate you being here. I know it's been a long time. Aside from the stream that I did a couple weeks ago, it's been a while. It hasn't been a regular thing in a long time, but it will be now. But that gentleman, when he brought it out, the point of that story was I explained to him the purpose of it. I said, look, this is going to need to handle, at that point, it was going to be a lot more tanks. So I was like, this is going to be holding literal tons of water in glass boxes. So whatever I need to do in terms of the additional supports underneath it, I don't really, not that money was no object, but however many blocks we need to use to properly support this thing and make sure that it's level, let's do it. And that dude laid out here in the mud in the rain for a couple of hours, like thoroughly going through. And where a lot of times you might see where a shed is supported on the 4 corners, or maybe sometimes they go the extra mile and they do the 4 corners and then one in the middle so that the doors don't sag. Like he went through, and this thing is supported, I don't know, like every 4 feet on those runners that they're built on. But it is built to where it will properly hold the amount of weight plus some that's going to go in here, and was put in level. These tanks, and you'll see it more in the video coming out. Um, you'll notice that the water's not level, but that's not actually the building. That's these wire racks that I bought. While they hold up really well, and they were a good investment, they definitely do give in a little bit. Give a little bit in the middle. They've got some flex to them. So, I mean, that's kind of fine, but kind of not. With the 20s, it's a lot more noticeable because you've really got that drop in the center area of the shelf. The 10 gallons, not so much. Or like when I had 4 10-gallons on end, not really. But that's all in the shelving and not in the flooring. So that's not going to be an issue. With those, I probably could. J Rock asked about putting boards across to help. I could. I definitely could. I said probably. I definitely could. And if I was going to go with those long term, I would. So case in point, me going, I have like right now, well, technically 2 empty and 1 still has water and a bunch of moss in it, but I have 3 40-gallons sitting here. I was like, I could take one of those 40 gallons, they're just a little bit wider front to back than the shelving is, and I could just put some boards in and put one of those up, or I could do 2 of those. And I'm like, nope, that's not what we're working on right now. That is one thing that I may do, or I contemplated doing, is even with putting in a studio and a studio area and a sink, I'd still have room if I wanted to put, like, say, 2 40s on the wall. But that's one of those, let's build what we're planning to build, look at the space that we have, decide how that would impact quality of life, not just for space purposes, but also for maintenance purposes and enjoyment purposes of, like, hey, I only had to do 3 hours of maintenance this week. Now I can spend what would normally be my other 3 hours of maintenance just looking at fish, or adding some more plants, or propagating, the plants. J-Rock does stuff, says if they're 40 breeders, there's a rack that they sit perfectly on that you can get. Yes, I have seen those. I actually already have. I keep wanting to grab the camera and show you all, but I'm not on the phone. I'm on the laptop with that camera on a tripod because I had it set up on the computer in this little rinky-dink table stand that I'm using. Every time I would touch like the mouse pad, it would shake. So I was like, well, I better grab the tripod and move the camera back behind. Because we're real fancy right now. The little it's almost like a hospital bedside table. I mean, it's built exactly like that. It goes up and down. It's got the same frame structure build. But it's old and it's kind of sitting like this. So I've got an aquarium book under my laptop to keep it level, which initially I was going to have the camera mounted on top of the laptop like I have before. But then when it started moving, I'm like, well, we'll put it back there. But it's kind of a rinky dink, and I've got my mic laying on its side right here. That way it's off camera. So definitely some improvements to be made in terms of that setup. But this is functional, so I will take it for now. Jeremy said, way back saw a YouTube video of Tractor Supply stock tank ponds. Yes, I've seen those before. Those are definitely very nice. I've considered stuff like that. I'm trying not to plan out too much stuff for outdoors until this is built. The things that I kind of have planned for outdoors is because, like, well, I have this glass, I should save this glass and then I can utilize it down the road to build things. Or, again, crazy dream one day if we ever can get that concrete refinished in that big shed that has the concrete floor, I could build a massive indoor pond with glass viewing panels. So, and there's the missus. Just make sure you plan my frontosa tank. Yeah. So I did. I already did. I have witnesses, and it's on record. I did plan for your frontosa tank. That was one of the tanks that's already spoken for. I assume she's on her a little break at work. So love you. I hope work's going well. Sorry, I'm not available to talk at the moment, but I will talk to you here in a little while. But yeah, I the only stuff I'm really doing outside or plan to do outside is that I do have some totes out just because I already had some totes. And again, making room for plants that I already have to have proper room to continue to grow. So, like the hornwort that I have in here, I had thrown, I don't know, a couple of stems, not much. We'll say about the quantity that you would get if you went to the fish store and bought a thing of hornwort. I had thrown some of that in one of the tubs 6, 8 months ago. So it's been a while. And I went around the back of the shed when I was kind of cleaning things up and taking stock and looking at what tanks I have and what I wanted to set up because it's me. And I'm like, well, the 90-gallon didn't break. I could bring the 90-gallon in here and build a stand and we could get that planted out and we could do that. And I was like, no, let's wait on that. But one of the big black storage totes where I had thrown a couple pieces of hornwort, that thing is completely packed full all the way across the top and all the way down to the bottom. And it's neat to watch how it's grown outside versus inside because like what you've got here is a bit more condensed and bushy. Not that what's outside isn't bushy per se, but it's almost double the size. What's outside is almost double the size of what you typically see in the aquariums, just because it's not as compact. So it's grown a little bit more separated out in terms of where each row starts, if you will. But also like it's about that big around versus where like the hornwort in here is maybe about half that size in diameter. So that's been cool. So I spread that out and then I took a couple of things that I had in here. What did I take out there? I took a little bit of guppy grass because I had some surviving guppy grass, and that's all you need is a little bit. So I've got like a little piece. I think I've got one in there. I know I've got a little piece in there, and I've got a little piece in one of those 10 gallons. I took a couple other plants, and I filled up a couple more of those tubs because I already have kind of a stand out there for those tubs to sit on. And so I filled some tubs up, shot some easy green in there, and threw those little trimmings in to see, how they would grow and how they would look and what would happen. And if they don't do anything, oh well, not a huge loss. And if I walk out there in 6 weeks and I've got, some really nice guppy grass and whatever else I took out there, then so be it. Got a piece of sod growing in one of those tanks. Yeah, it kind of looks like it, doesn't it? That I wanted to film it, but at the same time, it was one of those I kept putting it off because I wanted to film it, so I wasn't getting it done. But that moss, when I took it out, I kid you not, the mat was that thick, and I'm just like, I lifted it, and it was a good at least 15 pounds of moss that went into the bucket. So. And that was just like the stuff that I knew was still good. A lot of the other that had mostly turned brown, like I did like a little, oh, well, we'll put this in some water, like some of the tanks that are outside that just have some rainwater. I'm like, well, we'll throw it in there. If it does come back, it comes back. If not, great. I threw some in a couple different places in the yard, which I know sounds crazy, but some of you may remember all this moss. This wasn't even actually aquatic moss in the sense that it wasn't what you would go online and order from a pet supplier, and it's not what you'd find in your local fish store. This was moss out of the yard where we used to live that was growing next to the air conditioning unit where you get the drainage at, so it was constantly wet. And I was like, I wonder if I can clean that up, propagate it, and then convert it. And we did, and it turned into pounds and pounds and pounds of moss, which I keep wanting to take Because last week I did the phone. I can show you all, but we're not going to fight the tripod and cords and laptop and all that stuff. But you'll see it in the video that I put out. So that project worked out surprisingly well. But I did throw some of it back into the yard where I saw, like Jeremy said, terrestrial moss. Some other moss growing. So I'm like, well, maybe it'll grow here along this tree where this other moss is doing well at. So who knows? We'll see. But yeah, it definitely looks like sod. Like there's a lot of it. And I still need to get in there and take that and get it spread out some more because it's still thicker than I would like it to be in terms of getting proper light dispersion on it. I need to buy a roll of wire so that I can actually just go through all of it. Maybe not all of it. I may leave some of the bigger chunks, but go through a lot of it and start putting it back into moss mats, because that actually is how that started. Was just a couple of, well, I'll grab them. I'll show you what I did. Now this stuff is dead now, but I took this wire. Let's drop some dirt on the laptop. That's great. Some sort of nature crawling around on me. But I took these and I don't have anything to cut that with right here. But let's see if it's going to do it. It's going to focus. No, it's not. I don't have my camera settings right. But you can kind of see the little black where I tied this shut. So this is actually folded over on some moss. And then just drop these down and it turned into pounds and pounds of moss. And I've done that not just with this terrestrial moss, but with Java moss, Christmas moss, and all the other mosses. So part of, once I get that built, I'll go through, I'll have the moss mats, and I can just drop a moss mat tank to tank. Here you go. Have a moss mat. Here, have a moss mat. And let those really spread out. There's a company, I can't believe I can't think of their name. I've interviewed them. I've met them. Gotten fish from them. I've got a YouTube channel. They're out of Kentucky. Where's Ed? What I need them. Ed would know who I'm talking about. But anyways, I watched their videos of like their setup for their I hate to call it even a warehouse. Their fish room, their business fish room, and like a lot of their tanks, it's just solid moss all the way through, and it looks amazing. So that's why I actually started the moss mats like I did, was so that I could go, okay. And this is again back when I was doing a lot of 10-gallon bare bottom breeding focused tanks. It's like, well, I can drop these moss mats in a little. Yes, Prestige. Thank you, Select. It's good to see you, Select. I was watching your video, one of your videos earlier. I enjoyed that from the ACA, the showroom. That was very cool. If y'all haven't checked that out, and your ACA people, I think you should. He did a nice little walkthrough and showed off all of the showfish in the ACA showroom from a couple weeks ago. But yeah, so I need to get the moss mats going, which is part of why it's like, well, I don't want to set up a lot of tanks, but I want to have enough room for the plants to be growing. I'm going to have to stop listening to Corey while I sleep. That's kind of like, I used to listen to classical music, but now I just put on co-op live streams and they just play all night long. But like something he had said of having time on my side and just letting time do some work for me, and being able to just, okay, we're going to take these, we're going to get some fresh glass boxes for them, and we're just going to throw the plants in there and let time do us a favor and grow all this stuff out. So when I do turn around in 2 months, however long it takes, as I progress, well, oh wow, I've got all of that plant growth over there. Or look how many new plants these have made. Leslie was asking if you could put moss from outside in an aquarium. Will it just melt and come back? I know you're asking GRB, but I have that's what this is. So here, let's go mobile here. I'm not going to move the camera, and I'm not going to grab that one, but you know what? We can go mobile. Let's do it. My neck is still curved. Okay. Aha, this has a little detach. We're going rogue here, people. We're going rogue. Detach the mount from there. The wire from there, so it's free. Oh, that's as close as I can get you. I don't know if you can see the pearl, but all this is pearly. This is all, you'll probably see the bubbles as I move it around. There we go. Yeah, it's still in frame in place. That started as just a little, I don't know, 4x6 of terrestrial moss that I cleaned and converted over. This particular kind, which I can't tell you, the bed had just stuck himself into the moss, like, leave me alone. You're messing up my home. All right, let's see if I can put you all back. I probably should not have gone rogue like that, but oh well. Keep the water off the camera, flash the mount back in. Hey, that's good enough. That will I think work for the remaining time, which I hadn't even really planned a time, but so yeah, that the way that I did that, and again, this is not, I have no clue what I'm doing. I'm just a guy that likes to play with things, and if I can find a way to do something for free with a piece of nature, I'm going to try it. So no expertise, but the way that I converted that was I got it out of the yard. Awesome GRB said I've discovered 5 different types of terrestrial mosses just in my small street now. I'm taking notice. LOL. Yeah, so I've got a couple places. I actually looked around here. I'm on several of the walks through the property, and there's several places that have got some really nice mosses. I'm going to try once I get to that point, and I'll film that when I do. But I took that moss from outside and I washed it and I washed it and I washed it until everything was 100% clear. I would also take note if you're someplace or you yourself are spraying pesticides, that's something you want to take into consideration, particularly before it goes in a tank with fish in it. Took that moss, washed it really, really good. Took a plastic container you could use depending upon how much you're wanting to do. A shoebox, or like I think I used like one of the shallower under the bed organizers because I had like a lot of different things I was messing with at the same time. So I took the plastic container, and then I took just some aquarium gravel, just your basic pea gravel. Let me grab a drink real quick because I don't want to cough at you all. Basic pea gravel. And then I just took some soil. I don't even remember if I used organic soil. And you maybe could probably get away without using it just for the moss. I had some other plants and plant life that I was playing with when I did this. But this is what I did, and I did it with the moss too. Took that, put the pea gravel down as kind of a drainage area, put some dirt over top of it. Not a whole lot, just enough so that there was a layer, and then that the moss, or not the moss, but the pea gravel was acting as just kind of a drainage area for water to collect underneath. And then there are lots of different sprays. By sprays, I mean fertilizers that you can get that are more for that type of thing. But I honestly just took one of my spray bottles and filled it with aquarium water. I think it might have been tap water, but filled it with water, put a couple pumps of Easy Green in it, and then just sprayed everything down. And I sprayed everything down. I covered it with saran wrap, and I took one of my old cheap junky T8 or T10 fish lights that was long enough to do the job, and I laid it over top of that, covered with saran wrap, nice and wet and plenty of moisture. And I just turned the light on, and I just left the light on, and I just let it propagate out that way. And then I just made sure that I kept spraying it down. And And then once I had kind of propagated enough that I was happy with it and that it was starting to grow more stringy as opposed to like flat matte, if you know what I'm saying. Once it was getting a little bit more stringy, like what we see in the aquariums, then I took it, I put it in the mats, and I tossed it into tanks and let it do its thing. And I didn't really have any issues with dieback so much as I did issues with, if you want to even call it issues, non-growth. So it just, for a little while, it just sat there and it didn't die back, but it also didn't really grow. It was just kind of there. And then I started notice, oh, now I'm getting, because with the, I don't know what I did to my neck, but with like these, when I put it in there, it's all basically flat inside of this little sandwich of wire. And then you would start to see the little sprigs growing out, coming up, going, okay, all right, it's making new life and it's moving its way out through there. And just kept doing what I was doing with the aquarium in terms of fertilizer, easy green for whatever gallon of tank I was doing, and just let it go. And eventually it really went. I guess if you, a tip I would add that I would do in the future, kind of what I'm doing now, is I did run maybe higher light than I would normally do, just to help with that conversion where it's going from being out in the sun, even if not necessarily a lot of direct sunlight, but being out in the sun to being under an aquarium light. I've done it under the co-op lights, and then I can't even think of the brand. And that's shame on me because they gave them to me to try out. There's another company that does like the pendulum style lights, which I had gotten for a couple of rimless aquascapes I was going to use them on. I have to think of the name now. It's horrible because I have the app on the phone and it just says AI, artificial intelligence app. But that's partially shame on them for branding. You should at least say the name of your light when I look at the app to turn it on. But like the pendulum style lights is what I was getting at. I've used a couple of those. And set them up on, they have their own schedules, and I went through all the shenanigans of programming that, which is kind of frustrating, but is what it is. I use those really bright lights, but you can do it under just about any light. Said I've done a lot of it under the co-op lights, and I've done it under the T8 lights, and done it under the fancy $300 pendulum lights, and yeah, it works. But I would definitely, if you're going to do it under like a bar light, we'll call it co-op light or whatever, I'd probably turn it up a little bit higher maybe than you normally would, but take that into consideration in terms of your nutrient levels and the potential to grow more algae. Jeremy said I've ID'd some of the mosses, cushion moss, star moss, and another I forgot. Yeah, so those can definitely be fun to play with and try and convert over. I'm actually working on, because it's me, and I'm like, hey, if I can figure out how to do something cheaper for free and pass it along, and it's just playing with nature, that's a cool thing. But I've got some different grasses and things that I've got out in one of the aquariums that is just, again, I'm not giving it like a full effort to convert it over. It's one of those like, that aquarium's got some water in it. Here's a plant. I wonder if I can convert it. Chuck it in there. Have a little bit of nutrients and some sunlight, and let's see what you do underwater. And if it rots, it rots. There's nothing in there for it to hurt. And if it turns into something, it turns into something. But that's just a whole nother, I guess, part of the hobby I'm getting to enjoy out here that I hadn't really gotten to, just because a lot of the places I've lived while keeping fish tanks weren't very naturey. When I was, 16, 17, 18, and we lived really in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of 9,000 acres of state parks. I didn't keep fish tanks at the time, but I was always, you know, out checking out nature. And I wonder if that thing will do a thing. Or hey, we've got. I wonder if I could take these fish from the creek and move them over into the like we had an artesian spring that had a pond area that it's not drained into, but that it came up into from the earth. I wonder if these would survive over there in that pond versus in this stream and stuff like that. But it's fun and being able to wander around and go, there's a big rock face right there that I could probably take a sledgehammer to and bust off some really nice rock for the aquarium. Versus, oh, well, that's $400 worth of rock if I wanted that. So stuff like that. And that's the type of stuff that once I get the tanks up and running again, I look forward to playing with a little bit more. I've already got a couple places picked out that I want to take you all to on the property to check out, as well as near the property. I can't collect fish and things here because Tennessee is the way it is. I can't have bait fish. I could go catch game fish and keep them in a tank, but I can't go catch little bait fish. They're not supposed to be removed from the waterway for fear of they get transported to another waterway by somebody that's fishing, and then they get let go in a different waterway, and then they become an invasive species. That's a whole nother rant because there's a group of people that they may still be working on, but worked really, really hard to get meetings set up with the government here to talk to them about, hey, can we collect these fish, and the end result was the state saying, you can collect them, you can look at them in your specimen container, and then you can either kill them and take them home, or you can dump them back out, but you can't take them away alive. But there's still a couple of really pretty places like right here around the property because we're almost surrounded by water that I think you all would like to just check out just to see what plants are growing there and see what fish are in there. Even if we can't bring them back here, we can still go out and enjoy that nature and leave it out in nature. Big Steve's Glass Box saying hello. Hello, good to see you. All of you all, appreciate you being here. Still got 21 people hanging out after an hour and 27 minutes. Y'all are awesome. Yes, we can buy a live bait. Jeremy was asking, can you still buy live bait minnows for tackle/bait shops or from tackle/bait shops? Yes, we do still have live bait. And I'm not entirely sure how that fits into the argument without going back through, like, because it's been some years ago since that took place. But yeah, the way that it's ruled here is I can't, or anybody can't just go collect stuff from the stream and bring it back unless it's game fish. So like your bass and brim and sunfish and stuff like that. I could go catch those and bring them back. I could even technically go in, well, let me think about that. No, you couldn't net them because they would still need to be within the laws regarding being the correct size to keep them. So as long as the law said you can keep fish X as long as it's under 12 inches, then technically you could go net them when they're fry or when they're young. I said fry, probably more like juveniles, and bring them back and then grow them out. But then you would have to go, oh, well, that's what kind of juvenile is that? What kind of fry is that? Oh, that's this bass. Oh, well, this bass has to be at least this many inches long before you can keep it. So that's a whole nother mess of problems. So you're better to just not even fool with it. The funny thing is we have a lot of crossovers in terms of species that Kentucky also has, like Select Pet in here. So I could go up there, get my fishing license for the weekend, go hang out with Select Pet, catch the same fish that we have here in Kentucky, and bring them back and keep them legally. Now, what I want, like video evidence, geotagged that I had caught those in Kentucky? Yes, because they could still try and stick it to you and go, well, how do we know you didn't catch that 3 minutes away from Norris in the river? Um, so that's a whole nother thing. But yeah, I can go to Kentucky. Last I knew, unless they've changed the law of Kentucky, and collect fish, of course, with a valid fishing permit, and bring back the same fish we have here. Select pets that just come up on our free fishing weekend and native collecting without club. Yeah, I'd love to get up there. One, I want to. You and I have talked about doing it before. I'd love to go do it with you, but also where I'm at is about 40 minutes from the Kentucky border. So even if it wasn't a, yeah, with our club, I figured that's what you meant. Because I know your club, or at least I know you've talked about your club doing those trips. I won't say I know it like I've been there, but I know you've talked about your club doing the collecting trips and trying to time it out with the free fishing weekend so that like our club could come up and do it with you from Knoxville. But I'm only 40 minutes away from the Kentucky border. So even if it wasn't like say it's like pets not available or just running up there on my own, hop across the border, buy a fishing license, do some collecting, run back home. And maybe that's something that we go do in the future and have some fun doing. I think that would probably make some interesting content for you all. I know I would enjoy it just because I'm a little crazy when it comes to getting out there collecting. Those of you that saw any of the Florida collecting videos when we went down and met Father Fish, it was Chattanooga Ed, uh, Kenny E from Daniken Aquatics, and myself. Uh, there's some footage out there of me beard deep in the water. And as there's an alligator, I'm like, it's fine. I grew up in Florida. I'll be all right. I want to get under this grass here and see what's there. So I really get into it when I actually get out to do that stuff. Westworld said, "Have you bought large numbers of bait? I used to get all kinds of fun things in my minnow bags. Bullhead pickerel bass. They've had to clean that up though, from what I've told. I haven't. I honestly, it's funny that you mentioned that, and I guess it's weird that we got to that. But was driving past a bait shop the other day, and I was like, I looked at the missus and said, I kind of part of me wants to just stop and see what they have. Um, so I may do that when there's a tank available to see what's going on with it. And the worst case scenario, if it's something that I don't think will do okay in an aquarium or um, that we don't want, which I don't want, but if it's something that I think would not thrive, there's almost always people fishing 5 minutes away from me. We're on one of the major fishing rivers. So I could drive down the road and go, here's a bunch of bait fish. Have a great day. Select pets to just be careful within like 30 miles of Tennessee line. Lots of restricted species in that area. Absolutely, 100%. I don't remember everything that you all have got in that area, but I know like here we've got one of our indigenous species of darters is on the endangered species list. I think it's the blue darter. I know it's a blue darter, but I forget the actual name of it. Maybe it's just Tennessee blue darter. Let's look. I'll work around that. Is that it? The blue mask darter? Yeah, that's probably it. The blue mask darter is a federally endangered species and is restricted to streams in the Caney Fork River system in north central Tennessee. Yeah, and that is. Let me see if I can share that with you all. How beautiful this fish is. Um, no, not new layout. Present. Screen. Little mask darter. See if I can figure it out. Find StreamYard again. Yeah. So that fish. Yeah, the part of the picture's cut off, but you can Google them and see lots of actual, like, really, really pretty pictures of them. Beautiful, beautiful fish. I mean, it's a shame any fish is endangered, but could you imagine if you could go, which there's all sorts of awesome fish all over the world that people can, but being able to go in your backyard or knowing that's in your backyard and that it would be catchable, um, except you can't, unfortunately, because they weren't taken care of. Fish has a very flat face. Yeah, it did have a flat face, almost like somebody cut part of the picture off. So that's there are a lot of other pretty fish around here. We could just take a look at the ones around here, but we hit up Kentucky. Who knows? Maybe we catch some stuff. Maybe we don't. Maybe we go meet up with John and his club and go when they have the club do that on free fishing day. That would be fun. But no, the world is open to all sorts of interesting opportunities going forward, and I'm looking forward to sharing them with you all. Hopefully, it's as interesting to you all as it's going to be for me. We've gone for what, an hour and 35 minutes now. Did anybody have any questions that I may have overlooked in the chat before we wrap it up? Because I feel like, although I could sit here and talk to you all for forever, there's only, I think, so much value at a time that comes through before it's just me rambling about ifs and buts and hypotheses and theories and hypotheses and theories and all those things. Leslie said I have bluegills. Yeah, I mean those are cool too. I'm back when I was in my monster fish keeping. I had a couple of different native fish from here because I had, I think my smallest tank back then was 120. No, it was 120. I was going to say 125, but it was the 120s because I had a couple of the 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 foot tanks, which I still think are awesome layouts. But I had a couple different things. I even had a catfish at one point. It's been some years ago, but that was back when I had big tanks. And this go around, we're kind of focusing down towards the smaller tanks for lots of reasons, but I think it's going to be more enjoyable. And I think it's going to allow us to spend more quality time per tank while not taking away from the quality of life for the fish. There you go. Leslie said bluegills in a couple of tanks. They get big and I put them back in our pond and catch more babies. They grow a lot faster in a heated tank. Wow. Well, I'm sure they do. I'm sure having the I guess what you could call optimal conditions of uh, temperature regulation and being well fed and cared for by you versus just living in a pond or any body of water. I'm sure they thrive. That's what I'm looking for. They definitely will thrive in that situation. I think maybe one day we'll actually get the big pond up and running, but that's something to talk about down the road. Are you allowed? This is from GRB. James, are you allowed? And do you collect rainwater? I hear some USA states do not allow rainwater collection. I don't have any what would be deemed rainwater barrels out for rainwater collection. That being said, if you've got a bunch of tubs and fish tanks and things that are outside and it rains, which it tends to do in Tennessee, they end up getting rainwater in them. So that definitely happens. But I don't have any like, oh, we're doing rainwater collection or plans to do a rainwater collection system. That would definitely be a factor in like building ponds or like having the tubs out. Is I do uh, have to take into account the large amount of rainwater that we typically get. So oftentimes I will just drill a hole in the side of a tote, and because again these are outside, so it's not like there's ground to mess up or flooring to mess up. And then just take a piece of sponge and I've shown you all before taking cut it kind of in half partway through, but leaving it attached in the center. And then you just, it's the same method that Dean uses in his, or has used at some point. I'm not sure what he's on at this point on the version, but has used in like his fry things. I think he's maybe moved on to something different, but it's kind of like stuffing a piece of sponge in the hole, but you cut a slit around it so that it actually has sponge on both sides of it. I'll do that with the toast because I know that they're going to get a lot of rain and I don't want fish going out when I do have fish that are in them. Now the linear air pump is yelling at me. That's rude. Yeah, see, I'm not, I don't know that we're rainwater prohibited. I'd have to look that up in all honesty. But one of the nice things about where I'm at is they don't much care what you do out here. Like I've talked to the county. I have to cut it short in a minute because that pump is being mean. But Aquarium Cop said, I'm late. Caught the end of it. Caught the end of it. Appreciate it though, nonetheless. But like in talking to the county about, hey, I'd like to put this building here, or I'd like to do this. Well, what's it for? Well, it's for fish. What codes do I need to worry about? Oh, whose property? Well, it's mine. You're in the county? Yeah. We don't. Why are you bothering me? We don't care what you do. Leave us alone. Which is really nice. It's a lot of you leave them alone and they leave you alone. And as long as you're not doing some ridiculous stuff and throwing it in their faces, it doesn't really matter out here where I'm at, which is another great part about being not trapped in the city and confined to some of the rules, regulations, and parameters that are laid down. So I am going to end this because this backup air pump is making a lot of rattling noise, and I want to check that out before it goes kaboom and I have to work something else out. But I do appreciate each and every one of you all for hanging out here. Of course, I appreciate the replay crew. I love you guys and the fact that you're still coming back after all this time, hitting up the replays and leaving me comments. So a huge thank you to everybody. And I've not set a date yet. Who knows? I may be back on tomorrow, or it might be a couple days. But we're going to start doing at least once a week live streams, and we'll kind of find our place for where we want to settle into for a set date and time. Once I find something that kind of works well. But until then, just hit that notification bell, and then you'll know when I pop on. And keep an eye out for the update video coming out in the next couple days with a close look at what tanks are set up and what we've got going, and kind of an in-depth dive on the building plans. Love you guys. I appreciate you being here. Until next time, keep your fish healthy. Keep yourselves healthy. Don't be afraid to catch yourself. Little fish room fever. Take care, everybody. And the button again. Button.